So yeah, one of my favorite things about Enshrouded is the actual Shroud zones. Jumping in here and knowing that you're going to be entering into a completely different world aesthetically. Also, you're going to have different enemies and new opportunities for loot. But I wanted an experience similar but different to this, something unique. And that's where Once Human comes to play with their brand new Endless Dream update, because they've done some very, very unique stuff here. And it kind of mirrors what Shrouds do in Enshrouded, but it's also very different. It's also very Once Human / Stranger Things in its own way. But you have these areas around the open world where you can actually enter into these dream zones. They're more like nightmares, because you will be facing off against brand new enemy types, new type of bosses, and also have some opportunity to get some very unique, rare loot and gear as well. There's really cool farming techniques you could do here in these brand new dream zones. But you can check it out for yourself by downloading Once Human right now for completely free. Try it out for yourself. Follow that link in the description down below. Join me on this adventure as we close these nightmarish dream zones throughout the open world. So yeah, be sure to check out that link in the description below. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a very special look at the brand new Once Human update. It's probably the biggest update ever for this game. And we're going to take a look at these different dream zones. By the way, check this out right here. They've also introduced, get this, Rust mode called Once Human Raid Zone. This is a new standalone spin-off for Once Human designed to deliver intensified PvP-centric gameplay. You'll be teaming up with other players, building up big bases, and then raiding other player bases. It's pretty cool, but we're going to focus in more on this right here, which is the PvE experience, the new PvE experience with these brand new Endless Dreams. These dream zones, which you can see that are scattered throughout the map space. And it really does change up the open world significantly. It's so cool with how much it changes up the look and feel of the open world, plus the gameplay mechanics. Also, by the way, a very special thank you to Once Human for sponsoring this video and believing in what I do here on open world games. But we're going to hop straight in here to my gameplay as we enter into this dream zone. Now, this is probably one of the easier dream zones that you're going to want to tackle at first, because each dream zone has its own type of like nightmarish modifiers. In this case, we have some lightning going off. So while you are battling against these various nightmarish creatures, of course, you're going to have to be very aware of the lightning going off and dodge that. There's other dream zones where nighttime becomes a big issue because visibility is reduced. And then, by the way, mentioning nighttime, you're going to see that here later in the video, so stay tuned to that, because it's known to be one of the tougher type of nightmarish modifiers in the Endless Dream Zone. But I'm also going to be explaining some really cool stuff you could do here, because you're probably noticing some things happening on screen with these footprints that are around. I'll show you what that is exactly, because that involves some of the unique loot that you can actually get here in these dream zones. But anyway, these dream zones are definitely not a walk in the park. Let me tell you what, they can be very, very tough. You got to be aware of these enemies that can also buff one another or heal each other as well. And then there's enemies that can really kind of like debuff you and take the wind out of you. Also, some monstrosities just waiting for you around the corner for sure. Yes, there are the bigger bosses, which I'm going to be showcasing here in just a moment. But thankfully, there's a lot of enemy variety within these dream zones. It's one of the big concerns with some of these bigger open world games is that there's no enemy variety whatsoever. That is definitely not the case here with this update to Once Human. And by the way, some quick advice here. When you are playing this at first, I highly recommend dropping in or checking out the brand new Eternal dream zones and not heading straight into the deeper dream zones. You'll see them kind of like identified on the map. Be careful of the deeper dreamers, because they are extremely tough. You're going to want to look for the light dreamers at first to face off against them, or you will be having a hell of a time getting through this. So yeah, that's just my tip for starting out here with Endless Dreams for Once Human, because it's like its own separate thing within Once Human, which I really do love that they do have the option, of course, to still play the vanilla version of Once Human. So that does still very much exist. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. We do have some bigger bosses that you could face off against, but it does require Sands of Clarity, which is going to be a very specific special resource dedicated to these dream zones. I'll show you how you can actually collect that here in just a moment, because it does require you to be kind of like strategic about how you collect these Sands of Clarity, and also mindful of enemies. But we've spawned in this boss right here, and I didn't realize what was happening here at first, but you can see these little TV dudes rushing to the big TV. They are actually healing up this boss. I learned that the hard way, of course. I wish I had known, because you'll see in just a moment where they're actually coming from. They're actually coming from a portal, and there is actually a way to kind of seal shut this portal by utilizing your building mechanics. So yes, you can still build in a dream zone, and it's super useful to kind of like strategize on how to shut down a boss, because those TV things are really working their magic, healing up this boss. And if you don't have a team that understands how to coordinate and utilize all of the mechanics of the game during these instances, during these boss battles, you're really going to struggle big time. And you'll probably notice the black rain hitting my character. It's constantly eating and whittling away my health. So that's another thing sometimes you have to worry about when entering these zones. But I also really wanted to highlight something very, very cool that Once Human is doing. So if you're hopping back into Once Human and you're like, ugh, I don't want to have to do the tutorial all over again, I don't want to have to start over, well, you can skip straight through the tutorial and go to this screen where you can choose your class or setup. You can be like a free person, they call it, where you can kind of have no class setup, or you can choose like Beastmaster, which I went after, and I'm showcasing that here because I'm kind of in a lot of trouble, as you can see during this fight. I bring in my wolf here, who absolutely tips the scales in my favor, and this battle ends up being a big victory, big win, because of my wolf buddy. It's probably one of my favorite mechanics in Once Human right now, is having my wolf buddy alongside for the journey. But that's not all. You got to consider that there's also these deviants that you can collect throughout the open world, who can help you out in combat, of course, but also who can help you at your base, collect resources. You'll see later in the video here how I collect actually like a wood beaver who helps me chop down trees. You can have another deviant who could help you out with mining for resources like copper and stone to make life much easier. There are a lot of different deviants on top of the Beastmaster mechanic. It's so cool, it's so well done, and it can really turn the tide of battle when things get tricky. So yeah, here is an example of collecting one of the deviants, my beaver buddy here, who's going to be helping me back at base. You'll just find them randomly throughout the world still, and you could be reward them for taking on tougher challenges as well. But we're going to head back into another dream zone where we're greeted with this message right here: enter the abundance period. And this means that we are going to be seeing a greatly increased efficiency in obtaining more resources. And this is going to be great for what? Farming. You better believe it. You're going to want to go in here and risk it sometimes and really farm. But you got to remember that these dream zones, they don't stay stagnant. Also, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen here, next to your stamina, your water meter, above that, you will see a timer counting down from 15 minutes. Once that reaches 0, you're going to be completely confused and you will die pretty much immediately once that hits 0. So you got to be extremely careful. Now, there are some different tools that you can craft where you can extend that timer and do some cool stuff to become more resistant to the effects of a dream zone. But check this out here. I did mention earlier, you may remember, that there is this resource that you can collect, which is the Sand of Clarity. Yes, you collect that through these waking clocks, which, by the way, just a quick tip, sometimes you'll have to build up to the waking clocks because they're unreachable. So bring crafting materials. But here is what you're going to be doing with the Sand of Clarity: going to these nightmare tubes, depositing your Sand of Clarity there, and lo and behold, a boss will eventually emerge from these nightmare tubes. You'll have to face off against this boss. By the way, if you're wondering if you can play this solo, it is going to be a bit more challenging, not going to lie, but it is very doable. But there are going to be your more challenging bosses, which are going to definitely recommend having a group. So it's wise to get into the world chat or with some sort of established group where you can really survive some of these tougher encounters. But these new dream zones also offer up brand new loot variants dedicated to surviving these nightmares, these endless dreams. And you'll see here, I talked about it earlier, how you can follow these mysterious footsteps that are appearing. And yes, this weird walking crate thing will appear. And your goal is to basically kill it as fast as possible because it holds on to some randomized but very special loot dedicated to the Dream Zone. But, you know, right here I had a problem. I was absolutely surrounded by overpowered enemies. Yeah, I'm a little bit underleveled here, but you know what? I was going to get in here and take advantage and get myself some really good loot to get a head start, and it actually worked. So that's actually a tactic you can do to get kind of like a head start in the Endless Dream because, yeah, the Endless Dream zones definitely offer up some significant loot. But I wanted to take a moment here to really appreciate what they've done with the open world of Once Human with these brand new Dream Zones. I love the fact that each and every Dream Zone basically has its own look and feel to it. It's definitely a cohesive vision throughout though, but you'll roam into Dream Zones that have like a dark red tone to them, very ominous. You'll always be finding some sort of weird, crazy designed creature to face off against. It's just a refreshing experience in, you know, a genre that's kind of like oversaturated with the more typical enemy variants that you would expect to find in an open world MMO. I really dig what they've done here with the creature design. By the way, yes, you know, Once Human, like Enshrouded, is very much a survival type experience. You will have crafting, base building to manage, and of course you will have to also manage yourself in regards to your stamina, your hydration levels, hunger, that sort of thing, and also your sanity meter is definitely a thing that you have to consider. So, you know, I drank some dirty water because I felt desperate. Stupidest decision ever, and my sanity dropped completely. Of course, you could restore your sanity meter. You have to sleep, take care of your character. In time, your health could whittle down to a certain amount, and you'll be like, hey, you know what? My dude needs to sleep. But yeah, there it is. A look at Endless Dreams in Once Human. One of the biggest updates ever to the game. Remember, there's also that big PvP raid zone update as well that happened alongside with this. So you could check out, you know, PvE, PvP, bounce back and forth between the two. But if you want to download Once Human right now for completely free, try it out. Follow that link in the description below. Join me on this adventure. I'm having a blast with it so far. But thanks, guys, for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care.